Hi, everybody. It's Bill, and I'm here with our little experiment about going through some of our favorite opening tracks off of albums that really are compelling to us. And today we've got Scott, who's going to talk to us about the third record from a guy who is really going to start to hit his stride. And it came out in 1980, and it's pretty important, and I think Scott's got an interesting take on it. So, Scott, what do you have for us?
I'm going to talk about the song Intruder, which opens Peter Gabriel's third album, Melt. This is an important opening track for a number of reasons. First of all, the album itself is one of those albums that I will never be able to live without. I was a big fan of Peter Gabriel from the time he started his solo career. And his first two albums were good stuff, but then this one came out and just blew me away. Gabriel at this time was still a cult artist. He had not broken through the mainstream yet. This album was a little weird and a little dark, for anyone. If you came into Peter Gabriel with So and listened to So and became a big fan with him, which a gazillions of people did. And then if you went back and listened to this record, it would be jarring. Intruder, it's sung from the point of view of some guy who's doing a home invasion. And the thrill he gets from this is not, like not the valuables he finds in a house or anything like that. The thrill this guy gets is creeping through these people's house at night and knowing that he's scaring the shit out of the people who are being woken up by the sounds that he's making.
I like to feel the suspense, and I'm certain you know I am there. I like you lying awake, your bated breath charging the air.
And pretty much the rest of side one is this song. It's different variations of the song for different mental illnesses. The song Intruder just sets up just this sort of dark creepiness that's going on the rest of this album. And this is really when Gabriel first started getting into world music and doing tribal rhythms and things like this. Intruder not only opened this album, but Intruder opened up the way albums were produced for the rest of the decade. It starts out with just this tribal, really drum pounding, which sets up this guy creaking through the house that Phil Collins played. When Gabriel did this album, he hired Phil Collins to play drums, and he also hired Jerry Marotta also to play drums. Well, he told the guys, he said he wanted to keep this really sort of oppressive feeling about it, and he made a rule for these drummers. You do not use cymbals, and you do not use hi-hats. You're just here to pound on the drums, right? Because he didn't want that that harsh sound of the cymbals and the hi-hats to distract from that. They're having a problem because he can't get the volume that he wants. He can't get the feeling that he wants just without using the hi-hats and the cymbals. So he and engineer Hugh Padgham are trying to figure out how to just beef up the drum sound a little bit with that restriction that Gabriel put on them. And they started messing around with different microphones in different places of microphones. And they ended up, and they just discovered this, what's now called a gated reverb sound on the drum. Basically what it was, it got the sound out of the drums that was a little bit harsh, not harsh like a cymbal or the hi-hats, but it got a little bit of a high end on it. And it put a little bit of a reverb sound in the drums. And basically what it does, it just gives them a little bit of weight to put on the tracks of these songs. And so, and this is very obvious here. I mean, it's the first thing you hear on this album, right? With Collins coming in to boom, 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 boom. like basically beating a bass drum only on a snare drum, right? And it sounded cool. Everybody's going, "Oh man, that's great! That's a great sound." And so Collins took this to Genesis and did this on a couple of Genesis records. And the timing of this is about the time that Genesis was starting to break through and becoming the band of the '80s. And other engineers and producers heard this and said, "Well, wow, we want to do that. We want to do that." And next thing you knew, the whole rest of the decade, pretty much every album that entered the charts in the 1980s were using this same drum sound, and it just became, just way too much, and because it was, and my feeling on it is that this was done. This had a specific purpose, and this sound of these drums sounded really good in this atmosphere for this purpose. But as people tend to do when they jump on something like that, the sound went viral back in 1980, and everybody started using it for every purpose, and that's how you ended up like in the mid 80s with like John Mellencamp albums with this just real harsh, annoying drum sound sitting on top of the mix, which just it annoyed the hell out of me for several years. I know it did a lot of other people too, but this is where it started. A great opening track, which really sets the stage for this brilliant album, and a great opening track for better or worse for what the sound of music was in the 1980s.
Well, thanks, Scott. Yeah, it goes to show you never know what you're going to get when you go into the studio and you're working on a record, and the next thing you know, you've essentially invented the sound of the decade. But that's exactly what Gabriel did here.
I am the intruder. Now you got the right to sing the old man blues. They're trading your playboy for some hush puppy shoes. One more time.